Welcome to another Purple Insider Extra. Matthew Coller here, along with Sam Ekstrom. And a reminder, if you're not listening to the Purple Insider podcast to get our longer conversations, go do that. And check out our written work at purpleinsider.substack.com. Okay, Sam, let's get into our hardcore preview. Vikings and Seattle Seahawks. 3 things to watch each-ish. Sometimes it turns into more than that. I'm going to start right off with, do they do a better job against Russell Wilson in containing him in the pocket than they did against Kyler Murray? Kyler Murray was able to escape, create plays, throw a one touchdown pass that beat Patrick Peterson in the back of the end zone, another one to Rondale Moore that went for 77 yards. Those things cannot happen, but that is also Russell Wilson's specialty, is making plays after the pocket has collapsed.
Yeah, and he's kind of a ticking time bomb. You can bottle him up, and then he'll explode. And he loves creating those deep plays. One of the prettiest deep balls, I think, in football, with the arc he gets on it, the way he can drop it in behind defenders. And Patrick Peterson was trying to tell us about defending those long developing plays where Wilson buys time for 5 or 6 seconds. It's like backyard football, and it's really hard for a defensive back to defend that long when your back is to the quarterback. So that's how Seattle's going to beat you. I mean, it's the same thing that Arizona did where they converted on some of those big plays. Big play mitigation has always been a specialty of Mike Zimmer's defenses, and it hasn't been so far this year. So you got to keep everything in front and prevent those 30, 40, 50-yard gains.
Right, and I don't think there's any contain. We heard about that last week, you're containing, but I don't think there's anything you can really do when the guy is such a great athlete. And Patrick Peterson added that it's really difficult to even tackle him because he is such a strong person, that he's even stronger and more muscular than Kyler Murray. But I also think that Seattle is not exactly letting Russ cook. He has 146 quarterback rating, but they're still running the ball first. And so the Vikings, these first 2 weeks, something that's gone a little under the radar is they have not been that effective at stopping the Cincinnati Bengals or Arizona Cardinals running games. Both go over 100 yards in those games. And now that they're back at US Bank Stadium, they have to stop the run, and they have to stop Russell Wilson. Do you think that US Bank Stadium effect will be in play here against one of the best road quarterbacks and a team that can run the ball in the NFL?
Yeah, I think that there's certainly some level of that, especially early in the game. We've seen a lot of opponents come in here shell-shocked in the first half, and then they start to figure it out. Like even Drew Brees and the Saints have been overwhelmed in that building early on. So if you're the Vikings, you got to build a big lead. I mean, you've got to get out in front of this team because Seattle can claw back in. But establish the lead early, take advantage of that noise, because the crowd is always most enthusiastic in the first quarter. Then there's a little lull, middle of the game, people get sick of standing and yelling, and then fourth quarter it ramps up again. Take advantage early, and yeah, try to create some confusion for that offense. The Vikings obviously suffered from an opponent's crowd noise in week 1. Try to do a little bit of the same to Seattle.
Anthony Barr's status will be another huge thing we'll be watching, and after talking with Adam Zimmer today, it sounds like he's on his way back. I mean, Adam Zimmer would not say definitively whether Anthony Barr will play or how much he will play, but he talked about managing his snap counts, having a plan. What do you think the impact of Anthony Barr returning would be, Sam?
Well, I would have said tremendous, if this was week 1, but after seeing Nick Vigil, I don't think it's as big of a jump up. I think there are certainly more things you can do. You can probably get a little more of a blitz from Barr. He's obviously a very good tackler, probably a little better than Vigil, but Vigil has not exactly been a liability in any area through 2 games. So I think that Barr can offer some big play potential. Vigil obviously had the pick 6. I'm not expecting Barr to come out and do that, but I think if he can just play as well as Vigil did the first 2 games, I think that would be great, and just prove that he can play a full game. This is the first time he's been practicing back-to-back days in like 6-7 weeks.
Yeah, and he's only played 16 of the last 34 games since signing his contract extension. So he's not had a lot of work playing football for the Vikings over the last 2 years, really played 14 games in 2019. Speaking of health, Bashaud Breeland and Dalvin Cook are up in the air. Breeland has been hurt both weeks. It was a shoulder in week 1. It was a back last week. And then we saw Dalvin Cook with his ankle banged up a little bit. And so now his status and how much he could play, how effective he'll be, is a little bit up in the air. But Mike Zimmer basically said, look, I don't care if his ankle hurts. We're running Dalvin Cook into the ground, is what he said. I mean, but do we think that Dalvin, who in the past, when he's been banged up, has not been as effective, he's still good, but not as effective, will be close enough to 100% to make a huge impact on Seattle this week?
I would be cautious if I were the Vikings. And, I remember doing an article early in 2021, after last season, where I looked at running backs who got a similar workload to Dalvin Cook last year and how the next season went. And almost player for player, they either broke down and missed a lot of games with injury, or they really struggled. And you don't want Dalvin to join that list. I mean, if he had another great year, he would sort of be the exception to the rule, because running backs just can't sustain that year in and year out. So if he's hurting, I think you got to give him a little bit of a break and trust Alexander Mattison and Amir Abdullah. Now, as far as Breeland goes, you mentioned his injury. I think that Cam Dantzler healthy probably is a better alternative to the way Breeland is playing right now. He has really struggled staying with guys, tackling guys. I think that Dantzler showed enough in week 2 that he could potentially be trusted in a starting role, or maybe even a rotation with Breeland, who clearly wants to play through injury and is able to do that, and that's a credit to him. But I think the Vikings need to as Mike Zimmer said, get some wins in the bank.
Right, and I think that they showed trust in Cam Dantzler last week by putting him out there in some key situations when Breeland was banged up, rather than Chris Boyd. And I think that what Adam Zimmer said today was more or less, look, a guy's confidence is going to be hurt when he is not in the starting lineup, but he's got to bounce back from that, and it seems like he has, and now we'll see how he's going to perform if they end up needing Cam Dantzler quite a bit. Now, there's another guy that's been the focus of many a video on this channel. It's KJ Osborne, but the Vikings appear through the first 2 weeks to have a legitimate third wide receiver, and their 3 wide receiver sets have been effective in the first couple of weeks. Now, the question is, do the Seattle Seahawks make an adjustment? Because I don't know that defenses expected that from the Vikings with how much they play 2 tight ends, but now they've seen it. They've seen what KJ Osborne can do. Will the Vikings offense continue to, at very least, be effective?
I mean, KJ Osborne should be the ultimate beneficiary in these 3 wide receiver looks, because you're not going to relax on Thielen or Jefferson. So Osborne's always going to get, those third cornerback assignments. And I guess maybe you become more aware of getting a safety to keep an eye on him. But I think that Osborne can continue to be really good. He's got a 100% catch rate. He's caught every target, I believe, through the first 2 games. That's pretty good efficiency. And they're like D.D. Westbrook's role was asked about today. I think D.D. Westbrook probably is doing fine in practice. They just have someone they like a little more in KJ Osborne. And he's really rising up the ranks right now. I'm guessing getting picked up in a few fantasy leagues.
Okay, so do you think that the Seattle Seahawks have something over Mike Zimmer and the Minnesota Vikings? Is there a curse? Is it just Russell Wilson being good at football? What is it? And do you think the Vikings break that streak that Seattle has over the Vikings?
In my heart of hearts, I think the Seahawks win another close game. I mean, no one wants to hear that, but I just think that Seattle's in this position so often. They're so skilled in close games. I think it's going to be tight, and I give the advantage to Russell Wilson, who is a magician of a quarterback who makes crazy things happen, who is not going to be fazed by the noise. So I'm going to give it to Seattle by maybe another 3 or less margin.
Okay, so last week I thought the Vikings would bounce back. They came this close, maybe, to the right of the goalpost to making me right. I think I even predicted a Greg Joseph game-winning field goal, so whoops and sorry. I'm going to go with a close Vikings win here. I think that these 2 teams have played such incredibly tight games in recent years that what they needed was that one big stop or that one big play or one big drive. And it's been hard to do that out in Seattle, but it's a little bit easier to do it at US Bank Stadium. So I'm going to go with a Vikings win to kind of keep this season alive and potentially get it back on the tracks. But if they lose, we're having a very different conversation next week. So thanks, as always, for watching. Again, check out the podcast and the newsletter, and we'll see you guys again soon.